Hello, you. Have I ever told you about when I worked at the kitchen store? Well, I was there for a while and we had a big grand opening, and my job was to walk around and give cookies to people. Well, you know that I love to bake, and I especially love to bake cookies. And so I was handing them out to all these different people, and suddenly this little girl, she was standing in front of me, and she looked up at me and she said, "When is your cooking show on?" And it was so cute. But the funniest part wasn't that she said it, it was that another guy I worked with thought it was hilarious, and so he would tell people when they would come into the store, he would say, "Hey, you know who that is over there?" And they would say, "Who?" And he'd be like, "It's the Cookie Queen." And they would say, "Really?" He'd be like, "Yeah, haven't you seen her show?" And people would nod and they would say, yeah, I have seen her show." And it was hysterical because, of course, I haven't ever had a cooking show. Not that I wouldn't love to have one. Well, I was thinking about that as I was thinking about what we talked about yesterday. Because what we talked about yesterday was what all of society holds in common. And you know, cookies hold a lot of things in common. Mostly their ingredients. Most cookies are made of butter, flour, sugar, brown sugar, a little bit of salt, eggs, a few other things. And you can mix them up. You can add chocolate chip cookies or oatmeal or cranberries or raisins or whatever you like to make them all different kinds of cookies. But for the most part, they start out the same and then they get a little bit different. And as we talked yesterday about society holding certain things in common, for example, that every society across every culture, no matter what ethnicity, no matter what language, that the things that they hold in common is that they value wisdom, that they value justice, holding people accountable for their actions, that they value temperance, not going overboard with anything, that they value transcendence and humanity and courage. That as societies that we have certain values that we all hold to be true. And that's great, but individually we're not societies. Individually we're people. We're just part of societies and we make them up. But what's cool is that as people, as persons, we also have things that we hold in common, which is something we don't think about a lot because very often we talk about diversity. And we tend to build our identities around the things that make us different from one another, which is fine because our differences make us interesting and unique and fantastic. But when we build our identity out of the things that make us different from one another, then we have to maintain those differences in order to maintain our identity. And the truth of the matter is, I think we hold a lot more things in common than we realize. Several psychologists have done a lot of research, and what they've come up with basically is that they all kind of boil it down to that there are 4 things that make us up. And they use big psychological words, and they say that we are affective, and that we are cognitive, and that we are spiritual, and that we are somatic, which basically means that we're emotional, and we're intellectual, and we're spiritual, and we're physical. Or that everything we do somehow relates to our heart, our soul, our mind, and our bodies, our strength. So those are the things that are the core pieces of who we are, that make us up. But when you think of the other implications of who we are, that we are thinkers, and we're reflectors, and we're all storytellers, and we're builders, and we're doers, and we're organizers, and we artists, and we like to create things, and we're meaning makers, and certainly everybody has certain things that are stronger traits in them than others. But for the most part, all of us do these things to some extent, which is cool to think about because what it means is that as persons we are unique, but we have a common ground where we can understand one another, where we can say, "Oh, yeah, I can see how we're similar. Maybe we can agree after all." You know, I like to think of it as, well, we're all just the same dough, we just have different sprinkles. With the same ingredients have made us all up. We're just different on the surface and on the ways that we get to live those out. And I think this is important because as we think about, is there one big grand answer to the big questions in life, an important thing to think about is not just that we are part of a grander society. We're part of a bigger story of the culture that we live in, but we are also individually, that I have a story, and that you have a story, and that we have a story as mankind. And if there is one big, grand, overarching story, one big answer to everything, then we are a part of something bigger than ourselves. But that the piece that we play is so important and so vital, that we're indispensable to the fabric of mankind. And that's a cool thought. So the important thing, really the reason I bring it up, is because as we're thinking again about these big answers, then whatever is out there, whatever the answer is, first of all, it has to be legit. It has to be true. It has to be verifiable somehow. And that would be, it's got to satisfy my heart, it's got to satisfy my emotions, it has to satisfy my intellect, my mind, it has to accommodate for who we are as a society, who we are as mankind, and it also has to accommodate for who I am as a person, as an individual who holds so many things in common with all the other individuals, and yet with enough differences to make us fabulous. That we all have the same dough, we just got different sprinkles. So, a little bit more to think about tonight. We'll cover more tomorrow. Hope you had a great day. Have a good evening. Love you.